I never believed in ghosts, spirits, or anything like that. I still don't know if I do. But something happened last year that I can't explain, and it still makes me sick to think about. My wife and I had just moved into a new house in a quiet part of Indiana. It was an older home, built in the 60s, with creaky floorboards and thin walls. But it had a big backyard and enough space for us to start a family. Our daughter, Lily, was born in October. We set up her nursery across the hall from our bedroom. My wife bought this fancy baby monitor with a video camera and two-way audio. You could watch the feed on your phone and even talk through it. The first few weeks were fine. Sleepless nights, sure, but nothing weird. That changed one night around 2:30 a.m. I was lying in bed, half awake, when I heard the monitor make this soft click sound, like it had just turned on. Then static. Not loud, just a faint hiss. I looked at my phone and saw the live video feed had switched on by itself. Lily was asleep in her crib. Nothing unusual, until I noticed something in the corner of the room. It looked like movement, just for a second. I blinked. Nothing. Maybe my eyes were just tired. I closed the app and tried to sleep. But then, around 3 a.m., the monitor clicked again. This time, the static was louder. I opened the video feed and felt my chest tighten. There was a man standing next to Lily's crib. Not a shadow. Not a trick of the light. A real man. Bald, pale, and completely still. Just standing there, staring down at her. I jumped out of bed and ran into her room. My heart was pounding so hard I felt dizzy. But when I opened the door, nothing. The room was empty. Lily was still asleep. I checked the windows. Locked. Checked the closet. Empty. I told my wife what I saw, but she thought I was just overtired. "You probably dreamed it," she said. "But I know what I saw." That was just the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, the baby monitor kept turning on by itself. Always around 3 a.m. Sometimes it was just static. Sometimes there were whispers. I couldn't make out the words, but they sounded like a man's voice, soft, almost like he was humming or speaking low into the mic. One night, I recorded the audio. I played it back the next morning with the volume turned all the way up. The voice was clearer than I expected. It said, "She doesn't cry when I'm here." I felt sick to my stomach. I wanted to get rid of the monitor, but my wife said we were just scaring ourselves. "It's just interference," she kept saying. "Probably picking up another signal." So I bought a new monitor, different brand, different frequency. For 2 nights, everything was quiet. Then on the third night, at exactly 3:03 a.m., I got a notification. Motion detected, Lily's room. I opened the app. Lily was sitting up in her crib, eyes wide open, not crying, just staring toward the door. And standing in the doorway was that same man. Only this time, he was looking directly into the camera. I leapt out of bed, yelling for my wife. We both ran into the room. Nothing. No one there. But Lily was still sitting up, pointing at the door. We called the police. They found no signs of forced entry. Every window locked. No fingerprints. Nothing. That night, we stayed in a hotel. We moved out a week later. Before we left, I set up the baby monitor in Lily's old room. Just for one last night. I told myself it was to prove that it was all in my head. At 3:03 a.m., I checked the feed one last time. The room was empty, but in the reflection of the nursery window, I saw a figure. Right behind me. It was the winter of 2022 when I took a house-sitting job for a friend's parents in rural Pennsylvania. They were spending the holidays in Florida and needed someone to watch the place for a week. It was a 2-story farmhouse surrounded by woods, quiet and isolated. Honestly, it sounded like the perfect escape. I brought my laptop, a few books, and enough snacks to survive a blizzard. The first 3 nights were uneventful. Cold, boring, peaceful. I spent most of my time reading and watching TV. The house creaked a little, but nothing that stood out. That changed on the 4th night. I went to bed around midnight. It had just started snowing, tiny flakes falling against the windows. I left the bedroom door cracked open and kept the hallway light on. Just a habit. The house was dead silent, until I heard something on the roof. It was faint at first, a dull thud like snow shifting. But then it happened again, a heavier sound. Then again, and again. Thud, thud, thud. It sounded like footsteps. Slow, steady, moving across the roof from one end of the house to the other. I froze in bed. The sounds were too heavy to be an animal. No scraping claws, no scurrying. Just footsteps. Human ones. I checked my phone. 3:12 a.m. I tiptoed to the window and looked out. The snow was fresh, untouched. No footprints in the yard. No sign of anyone. But the footsteps continued, now above my room. I backed away from the window, my heart racing. The house didn't have attic access from inside, and the only way to get on the roof was a ladder stored in the shed. I waited, holding my breath. Then the sound stopped. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed under the covers, phone in hand, flashlight on, listening for any noise. The next morning, I went outside to check. No footprints on the roof. No broken branches, no fallen snow. Nothing. Just a smooth blanket of white. I told myself maybe it was snow shifting, or an animal I didn't recognize. That night, I double-checked all the doors and windows. I locked everything, closed every curtain, turned on every light I could. But again, around 3 a.m., the footsteps came back. Only this time, they didn't stay on the roof. I heard them move across the shingles, and then onto the porch roof, just outside the upstairs hallway. Then silence. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks. Soft, slow, deliberate. At the upstairs window. I didn't move. I couldn't. My chest felt tight, like something was pushing down on me. I turned my head slowly toward the window, but the curtain was shut. I wanted to get up, to pull it back, but my legs wouldn't move. The knocking came again. Knock. 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 This time louder. Not angry, not rushed. Just patient. Then silence again. I finally worked up the nerve to get out of bed and yank the curtain aside. No one was there. But in the snow outside the window, on the tiny ledge of the porch roof, I saw footprints. Clear, deep, human footprints. No handprints. No ladder. Just 2 tracks that started right at the window, like someone had stepped out of thin air. I snapped a photo with my phone and went back inside. I didn't sleep. The next morning, the prints were gone. Fresh snow had covered them. I left the house that day and stayed in a motel for the rest of the week. I sent the owners a message saying there was a small leak in the ceiling, just so I wouldn't seem paranoid. They didn't ask questions. A few days after they returned, the mom called me. She sounded unsettled. She said, "Hey, strange question. Did you notice anything weird about the upstairs window while you were here?" I asked her why. She said, "Because we found 3 small handprints on the inside of the glass. Very faint, like from someone with wet fingers." I didn't know what to say. She paused, then added, "And the weird thing is they were facing outward." I used to work security at a small office complex just outside of Denver. It wasn't a glamorous job, mostly just walking the same empty hallways, checking locked doors, logging the time. The building was older, 3 floors, and only 1 or 2 companies still rented space in it. At night, it felt like a ghost town. It was my last week on the job. I had found a better position elsewhere, and I was counting down the days. The overnight shifts had always been quiet, but that last week, something changed. It started on a Wednesday. Around 2:45 a.m., I was doing my usual round on the 3rd floor when I heard the elevator ding behind me. Now, that might not sound strange, except I was the only person in the building, and I hadn't called it. I turned around. The elevator doors were already sliding open. Empty. I walked over, looked inside. Nothing. I checked the security system on my phone. No one had used a key card. The building doors hadn't opened in hours. Still, I chalked it up to a glitch. But it happened again the next night. Same time. Same ding. Same empty elevator. Only this time, the light inside flickered for a few seconds before going dark completely. I reported it, but maintenance said there were no issues. The 3rd night, something else happened. I was sitting in the security office, eyes half closed, when I heard the elevator again. Ding. I checked the monitor. Doors open. No one there. But then I noticed something. One of the 3rd floor hallway lights, the one right outside the elevator, turned off by itself. Then the next one. Then the next. Like someone was walking down the hall, triggering them in reverse. I stared at the monitor, frozen. The lights were going out one by one, coming closer to the security office. I looked at the hallway camera outside the office. Nothing there. But the lights kept going out. Click, click, click. I locked the office door. Then everything went black. All the hallway cameras, the office lights, even my phone screen. Total darkness. For about 10 seconds, there was silence. I could hear my own breathing. Then I heard it. A soft tap 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 on the office door window. Not knocking. Just the sound of fingers tapping. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stared at the door. Then click. The lights came back on. The cameras rebooted. My phone buzzed. I stood up and opened the door. The hallway was empty, but the camera feed showed something I didn't expect. Every single hallway light on the third floor was back on, except the one right above the elevator. That one stayed dark the rest of the night. I didn't finish that shift. I left early and told my boss I was done. I couldn't explain it, but I didn't feel safe there anymore. Here's the part that still keeps me up. The day after I quit, I got a message from the guy who took over my shifts. He was brand new, fresh out of training. The message said, "Hey man, quick question. Around 2:45, does the elevator always open by itself? Also, did you ever see a guy just standing inside it, not getting out?" I called him right away. He said the elevator had opened on its own, just like I described. But this time, it wasn't empty. There was a man inside, wearing a suit, standing completely still. No expression, just staring straight ahead, like he didn't even notice the doors had opened. My replacement said he watched for a solid 30 seconds. And then, without warning, the man turned his head slowly and stared directly at the hallway camera. Then the feed went black, just like it had for me. They say the building's being torn down later this year. But sometimes I wonder, if they checked that elevator one last time, what would they find beneath it?